Hey guys, Peter here to tell you about the latest from 12 Foot Ninja Vengeance out October 15 on Volcanic Music. This album has 10 tracks, 35 minutes in length, and this is the band's third full-length studio album. They are an Australian metal band. Now, before you get into this record, before you even press play, take a look at the title of the album and take a look at the artwork. It will give you at least an idea of what the soundscape, what the atmosphere of this album is going to be all about, which is 80s arcade room, arcade style games, and everything that comes with it. It goes a little bit beyond it, but that is your starting point, and I feel like if you have that in the back of your mind before you even press play, the overall experience of navigating through these 10 songs becomes a little bit more palpable, because if you just go in without knowing exactly what you're getting yourself into, this album is pure chaos across all 10 tracks. They're all coming at you from different angles, with different constructions, with different styles, with different soundscapes, with different atmospheres. It's just a lot for the listener to go through because there's no pattern. There's no pattern within the songs, and there's no pattern from song to song. So this is chaos existing within the black hole of this record, and that's how the overall structure of this album could perhaps be defined. Now, once you get into that sound, this album has everything. They threw everything at the listener, including the kitchen sink. But I feel that if you look at the 80s, at that decade specifically, and you take a look at all the music that was done, if you take a look at all the TV shows, if you take a look at the arcades, the ambiance, the atmosphere that was created in arcades when you would go there to play your favorite games, all of the sounds of the 80s are represented within the overall soundscape of this record, song in and song out. I mean, you got everything here. You got 8-bit, you got jazz, you got a little bit of a cabaret vibe at times in songs. You have heavy riffs, heavy drums, more melodic riffs, more melodic drums. You have synthesizers driving the experience. You have fax machine sounds. You have Atari video game sounds. I mean, there's everything on this record, and it's all there in order to give you that 80s feel, that 80s vibe, really driven by that arcade style approach that this album has, from the artwork into the structure, into the sound. So it's an album that has a lot to give, has a lot for the listener to digest, and because there's no patterns, you have to reset your expectations, your ideas of what this album is all about from song to song. Perhaps the synthesizer sound, because it's one of the consistent elements throughout the album, even though it's working in different perspectives and it's giving you different feels from song to song, the existence of that synthesizer there perhaps is a little bit of the glue that holds it all together, that gives you a sense of balance throughout. But the album is too eclectic to even follow any order or to follow any pattern. So you have to be ready for re-engaging yourself with every single song, resetting your parameters. Forget about what you heard before and get ready for what's coming next. That's the beauty, that's the essence of the sound within this album. Now, I feel like the synthesizers, like I said, play a very important role, perhaps the more predominant role. I wouldn't say they're the most important element, but they're the most predominant one that has more of a stable outline across all 10 tracks. But I really enjoy the guitars as well. They're not always heavy, they're melodic at times, sometimes very subdued within the song structures and within the overall soundscape. But the diversity of sound coming from the guitars was always really interesting. And when they got heavy, they got heavy. So this is an album that still offers you a lot of great riffs, a lot of great guitar sound throughout, even though it's not a guitar-driven album and they don't play a predominant role in the definition of the sound itself. Same could be said for the drums. When they go a little bit heavy, you can feel their presence. You can feel that they're grounding the tracks. And when the songs are a little bit lighter, when they have a different atmosphere, when they push you towards a different arena, the drums become a little bit more subdued. So they play a role throughout this record, but not a role that defines your experience. More a role of creating some substance, of creating layers, of helping the atmosphere, a supporting role, if you will, and not necessarily that main role that allows you to focus on it and guide you through it. That is perhaps more of the role of the synthesizers, even though they're changing so frequently from song to song and within songs themselves. Another important element of this album is the lyrical content. I really enjoy the lyrics on this record. You almost get sidetracked with everything that is happening as far as sound and atmosphere is concerned, that the lyrics could easily fall into second fiddle to everything else. But if you really pay attention to the lyrics and you tie in the lyrical content with the cover of the record, with the overall sound, where this album is trying to go, with the title, everything starts to come into play and everything starts to become perhaps a little bit more clear. It's always hard to see the full picture when there's so much haze, when there's so much chaos. but I really felt that the lyrical content of this album helped define perhaps a little bit better what the picture, what the theme of this album is really all about. And then on top of it all, you have vocals that are as dynamic, as chaotic, as diverse as everything else that is happening here. The beauty of the vocals is that you have exactly what you would expect depending on the style and sound that the songs have. So if the song is going into a more heavier direction, if it's pulling you towards more of a metal structure, you're going to get more of harsh vocals, you're going to get more of clean vocals to bounce off of those harsh vocals, and that creates a very interesting dynamic. It makes the songs feel bigger, with more volume, with more power. If the track has more of a disco vibe, or if it goes more into an electronic, almost industrial style, then the vocals go with that, becoming a little bit more electronic themselves, becoming a little bit different in the tone, in the delivery, with all the nuances that they put forward. So an album that, as much as it's morphing and growing sound-wise, it's also doing the exactly same thing on the vocal side, not staying steady at all. Overall, this album is insane. I think this is going to be one of those records that nobody's going to be indifferent to it. You're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. There's no way you're going to be kind of pregnant about this album. It just has so many things to offer. It's so different. It's so outlandish at times that you just have to fall in love with it or just absolutely hate it because it's not your cup of tea. I really appreciate the difference, the joy in experiencing different things like a fax machine. I never thought I was going to experience a fax machine in a song in the way that was used on a track on this record. So all of these things, you have to give them credit for thinking outside the box and not being afraid of bringing elements that became the soundscape of the 80s into an album that's really driven by that era. So I appreciate the effort, I appreciate the work that went into creating a volatile album like this, a diverse record like this, and it's an album that felt fresh at every single turn. Because I was tapping my foot, I was banging my head. I enjoyed this record all around. It's an album that has a sense of novelty to it. You just hope that that novelty doesn't wear out the more that you're listening to it. Now, as far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Vengeance. It has more of an industrial synth drive sound to it. It creates a dark atmosphere. The vocals are very subtle, specifically in the verses. So the verses has this more dark, somber atmosphere. The vocals add to that, and that helps the song create this mist. Then once you move into the chorus is a little bit bigger vocally and musically. It offers heaviness, it has volume, and therefore it pops out of the mist that was created in the verses. The chorus almost feels at times like a little bit of a Peter Gabriel style track with some metalcore infusion into it. That's the best way to describe this song, specifically in the chorus. The verses have more of an industrial vibe. They feel a little bit more somber. They feel a little bit more robotic. Next, you have Gone, a bouncy track. This is 70s disco all around. I just love the bounce of this song. It's a fun track to listen to. You want to dance. You really feel like there's a disco ball above your head. You're in the 70s. You're perhaps rollerblading. It just has all of those vibes brought into a song. It has a little bit of the Night Flight Orchestra vibe because they're really the masters of creating that sort of sound and bringing that 70s style all the way back into now. So I felt like there was a little bit of that in there, but I love how much fun this song is. It has a big chorus, it makes it catchy, it makes you want to dance, it makes you want to tap your foot. Love this song all around. Last but not least, you have Cultural War. This is the heaviest track on the record, period. There's no other song that even comes close to how heavy this track is. It starts off with almost like a music box, and then once the music box gets closed, the sound goes off and the heaviness comes in, and you feel it both vocally and musically. It's a very heavy track all around with harsh vocals. There's still some clean vocals, but the harsh vocals take the brunt of the work throughout this track. The song feels thick, it feels powerful. The drums, guitars, bass, everything coming in order to create volume, in order to create heaviness, in order to drive the experience of the song. And then after the second chorus, it hits you with some mariachi sounds. Like, I was floored. I was expecting maybe a guitar solo, okay, maybe even a breakdown. That's kind of what I was going with. A mariachi band playing after the second chorus. I was like, what just happened here? This is a heavy track, and you're adding some mariachi into it as a bridge, as a breakdown, if you will. I didn't know what to think about it, but by the time that I start wrapping my head around it, The song came back again with a lot of heaviness, feeling even heavier than how it was before. The beauty of having that piece there, that bridge there in the middle or towards middle end of the track, is that it makes everything that comes after feel 10 times heavier than what came before it. So because of that, I really enjoyed it, and because it made me stop and pause and go back again and listen to it again. Am I really hearing what I'm hearing? Because of that, this song really pops out and becomes easily one of my favorite tracks on this album. This is it, 12 Foot Ninja Vengeance. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.